and welcome to Tea Time. I'm Chaiti Narula and we're at the Unitech Golf and Country Club at Greater Noida from the Duke of Edinburgh Cup 2013. And a guest today on my show is the CFO of Apollo Tyres. Now he's best known for his participatory style and innovative perspectives that he brings to the table. It's indeed a pleasure to discuss the tyre industry in much detail with none other than Sunam Sarkar.
On the show this week, we have Sunam Sarkar, CFO, Apollo Tyres.
We've always taken ambitious targets. That's the kind of company we are. And with the acquisition of Cooper, we really crossed the target that we had set for ourselves. So, time for new targets.
In news, Henrik Stenson wins Deutsche Bank Championship. And SSP Chaurasia rounds off with 1 under 70 at Wales Open.
Sunam Sarkar, welcome to Tea Time.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on becoming the 7th largest tyre manufacturer in the world after the acquisition of Cooper. Take us through how that acquisition has helped you really.
That's interesting. We have been primarily an Indian company, as you know, going back a number of years. And we started expanding internationally with acquisitions. Cooper really is the culmination of that journey where we identified North America and China as two areas where we didn't have any presence at all. So Cooper fit that perfectly, and we had very little overlap with the company in other areas. It made perfect strategic sense for us to do a deal with Cooper, and that's how it came about.
You had targeted an annual revenue of $6 billion this year, but you've surpassed that figure, and what is clocked in is about $6.6 billion this year. How did you manage that?
The acquisition, of course, helped. Even though the other business that we've had prior to the acquisition has been growing fairly strongly, Apollo in the last 5 years has had a CAGR of about 20-odd%. We've always taken ambitious targets. That's the kind of company we are, and with the acquisition of Cooper, we really crossed the target that we had set for ourselves. So, time for new targets.
Sunam, we have seen a consolidation of the R&D division of Apollo Tyres as well. What has led to this consolidation this year?
Well, a lot of developments in the tyre industry are actually taking place in Europe. As you're aware, it's most of the European car manufacturers that are pushing the envelope as far as automotive technology and design are concerned. We wanted an R&D base close to them so as to be moving forward at the same kind of pace that they are. That was the reason why we set up an R&D center in the Netherlands. It's also a good place to attract talent. In our industry, most of the really good people are in Europe. We were finding it difficult to get them all across to India, living conditions, mindsets, etc. So we decided to do it the other way. We've taken a few Indians into Europe, but essentially it's a joint effort between the Indian and European team that has set up the European R&D Center.
Now you mentioned Europe. You're coming up with a new office in London as well. You have offices across the world, starting from US to China after your acquisition of Cooper as well. Now the new office in London, how much of the senior management from India really is expected to move to London?
Well, from a time zone perspective, obviously London is very central, and it kind of helps you manage a business which is spread as far apart as you said, as US and China. In fact, when we were doing the Cooper deal, we used to do conference calls late into the night Indian time, and on an ongoing basis, running companies like that might not be the most feasible option. So the London office makes a great deal of sense. However, I would also say in today's age of communications, technology, connectivity, etc., It's not essential for everybody to be in London. It'll be governed more by the kind of function, the kind of role, the necessity of covering the US, China. India remains a very significant part of our operations, so we will have a strong presence remaining in India as well.
When Apollo Tyres was established in the year 1972, it was essentially a truck tire business. Over the years, we've seen a lot unfolding and a lot of other footprints that you have established across geographies as well. Which are your 6 top key brands at Apollo Tyres? And take us through the journey from the year 1972 to 2003 and the kind of paradigm shift that we've seen throughout.
Okay. It's been an interesting journey. The company actually managed to perform the very difficult feat of writing off its net worth 3 times over very soon after 1972. And we were a loss-making company, practically a dead company, as a lot of analysts called us. Then Vice Chairman, who's now the Chairman, Mr. Onkar Kanwar, he came into the tire business. He started running operations. He put in place a team of technologists to make a product that was suitable for the Indian market. Our biggest weakness then was we just had tire recipes which we got from a collaborator and rolled them out, and obviously they didn't do well on Indian roads. In the 70s, you can imagine, our roads were a fair bit of a challenge, as they are today too.
Not this way.
And Apollo's not looked back since then, grew very rapidly, but for the longest time, and I would say even as late as 10 years ago, Apollo was essentially a truck tire company. 90% of our revenues came from truck tires, 98% of our revenues came from India, and 95% of our revenues came from the replacement market. So if there was ever a company with all its eggs in one basket, it was Apollo Tyres. That's when we, as part of a strategic planning exercise, said we've got to diversify all these. Truck tires have to be supplemented with car tires, agricultural tires, light commercial vehicles, etc. We need to do geographies other than just India, and that's why we went and looked at acquisitions. We've even considered greenfield facilities elsewhere. Now got a very strong presence with the OE manufacturers. Today we work with almost all the manufacturers in India, and hopefully we'll be working with them around the world too. The Apollo brand has been supplemented. We got the Dunlop brand in South Africa along with the acquisition there. Mm-hmm. The Friedrichshain brand in Europe, which while being niche is a very premium brand there. And of course Cooper brings a whole stable of brands itself. So yeah, it's all been part of an integrated growth journey where we focused on the products, markets, brands.
Interesting. On that note, it's a good time now for us to take a breather on tea time. We will remain in conversation with Sunam Sarkar and talk a little bit more in detail about Apollo Tyres on the other side of this break as well. You take a quick break. Sunam and I will see you on the other side. Welcome back. We're in conversation with the CFO of Apollo Tyres, Sunam Sarkar. Now, Sunam, we were talking about profitability. We were talking about acquisitions as well. A lot of tyre manufacturers in India have made successful acquisitions. Thereby, their revenues and their top lines have grown quite considerably as well. But they have struggled on the bottom line front in the country. But at Apollo Tyres, you have been able to hold the fort in terms of profitability as well. What would you attribute this to?
Our focus has always been that just top-line growth is meaningless. It has to be always profitable growth.
Okay.
So whether we've chosen to go into new markets, whether we've chosen to acquire brands, and I was talking earlier about Friedrichshain, it's a classical example. In a market like Europe, which in the last 4 or 5 years has been steadily declining, Friedrichshain has been a star performer, margins much higher than most others in the tyre industry. Even in India, we've remained ahead of our competitors because of a sharp focus on costs and the fact that we will not play the price game just for the sake of playing the price game. As I said, without profitable growth, it's meaningless.
Wow.
Thank you. Oh, lovely. Look at that.
Thank you. Now, Now, your EBITDA margins we've seen in the past, they've been expanding. Your employee costs have remained low. Even the raw material pricing remain low has also been able to help you quite a lot.
Sure.
But having said that, you haven't been able to pass on these price escalations in the domestic market swiftly as well. That also means that you're largely dependent on your margins thanks to the raw material pricing remaining low. Is that a concern at Apollo Tyres?
Look, it's an industry that's particularly sensitive to raw material costs.
Right.
And the last few years, you've seen that most raw materials have gone through a very sharp degree of escalation, and they've, of course, come off their highs now. Going forward, we don't believe that there's too much of a concern, because with global demand remaining reasonably subdued, it's not expected that either rubber or crude prices are going to spike suddenly. So we think we are okay. We don't want to unnecessarily pass on price increases into the marketplace when there isn't a real need to.
Globally, the sentiment has been weak, but now India is also witnessing a significant slowdown. Now, how does that impact volume and profitability at Apollo Tyres?
Well, that's obviously a big challenge, and we are really an adjunct of the automotive industry, which is such a critical factor for the economies of almost all the large countries, large economies. But interesting that in the last few months, you would actually have seen that economies like the US and even Europe to some extent are showing recovery. And that's certainly going to be of help to us going forward, especially with the new acquisition. As India slows down, and I think India's in for a period of some challenge. We all know the next year or two could have a lot of uncertainty. So we are particularly happy that we've done the Cooper acquisition at this point of time, because it gives us access to the North American market, it gives us access to China, and it certainly helps us to balance out our revenue and profit streams.
Sunam, are the international subsidiaries, especially pan-European nations, helping you expand to newer segments as well?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't have any presence in winter tires, which in Europe, and particularly in the northern parts of Europe, is a very large and a very profitable segment.
True.
The acquisition that we made certainly helped us get into that market. They're also in the area of farm radial tires, which is something that in India we don't have anything of. So that's definitely been a factor in our international acquisitions.
You know, I want to touch upon a little more in detail about radialization as well, and also a little more about your personal journey into golf and into the corporate world as well. But all that and more on the other side of this break. So it's a good time now for us to take a quick breather. Sunam Sarkar, the CFO of Apollo Tyres, and me, Chaiti Narula. We will see you on the other side. Stay tuned to ET Now. Lovely. What's your handicap really?
18.
I don't believe that.
Seriously?
It has to be much lower.
I told you, you're my inspiration today.
Not at all. So welcome back on Tea Time. We're in conversation with the dynamic Sunam Sarkar, and we're getting his outlook on radialization now. The share of radialization in the TNB tire segment is expected to cross about 40% by the year 2017 to 2018. What are the factors that are contributing to this figure?
See, the biggest advantage of radials in the truck and bus segment is fuel efficiency. And as fuel costs have been going up, you know, diesel prices are being regularly hiked in India now, the truck operator wants to save on fuel as much as possible.
True.
So they're prepared to invest in radial tires.
Let's take your perspective on the union budget now. So we have seen a change this year in the raw materials and custom duties for tires as well. Has that in any way impacted the tire industry, and what does your outlook remain for the next union budget to come?
Unfortunately, we are an industry that's pretty susceptible to the budgetary whims of finance ministers over the years. Excise and customs duties on our finished products and also on our
raw materials as
also
well.
on raw materials have always been a factor. The industry has been screaming itself hoarse on natural rubber. We pay more duty on natural rubber than an importer would pay on tires, which is clearly a case of inverted duties. In the next budget also, given the fact that it's an election year, governments do tend to do things which are, let's say, popular, and given the state of the country's finances, they need also to raise resources. The tire industry could again be a victim of some of those measures. We hope not, but as I said, we are always prepared for the worst.
Sunam, MRF continues to be the market leader with a share of about 24% market share, and you continue to be a tight competitor and a close second to MRF in the tire segment. What is really restricting or deterring the entry of new players in this market?
Nothing really. It's free competition. Everybody is welcome. People have tried, and I shouldn't say failed, but they haven't been as successful as perhaps MRF and Apollo have been. Both companies are very well run, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, I think as companies we tend to focus on the basics. MRF's model has been more growth within the country. Our model has been a more diversified portfolio, which is why we might be number 2 in Indian revenues, but on a global scale we are far ahead.
Because you also target a lot more inorganic growth opportunities more than anything else. Great, we're going to touch upon your personal journey as well now, but let's finish our game first. Come.
Absolutely.
Just about missed it.
That's the game.
That's the game, I know. That's golf for you.
Well played.
Thank you. So now the Duke of Edinburgh Cup, for which you are here at Unitech Golf Course today. How did your day pan out at the tournament?
Pretty good. It's the first time I played at this course, and it's a beautiful course. Definitely come back here, but in the winter. Today was very, very humid, and it's a tough course to walk. But overall, we enjoyed it. We had a nice 4-ball. We really enjoyed it, and it was very well organized.
Your home course happens to be DLF golf course.
That's correct.
But I believe that you've had a lot of boys' trips to Thailand just to be able to play golf.
Oops, who's been talking? Yeah, we do an annual trip to Thailand, typically around the 26th January weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So play 4 courses, eat lots of good food, and yeah, the Thai golf industry is something special. I think the biggest thing you notice is the kind of infrastructure that there is. So even though courses might be a little away from the main highway, there are good carpeted roads leading to those. In India, unless the course is right in the middle of the city, you really dread getting to those courses. The caddies are very well trained. The course marshals are always making sure that play proceeds at a good pace. So yeah, we've had some really, really good experiences.
So now, does your handicap still bother you? Because I've been reading your blogs quite a bit, and I read somewhere that your handicap did bother you at some point of time.
I think I wouldn't be a true golfer if my handicap didn't bother me. I guess even the pros are bothered, because it's a game that always encourages you to do better. And at the end of the day, you're playing against yourself. Unfortunately, I seem to have plateaued, not playing enough, I guess, and practice makes perfect is what they say.
So somebody who's been ardently following up on all your blogs now that you were making your way into the show, I've also noticed that you love the study of human behavior. I mean, being a student of human behavior myself, I want to know, what is it about human behavior that intrigues you the most?
I think people are different everywhere, and we often end up in stereotypes of the Indian way, the Chinese way, the American way, but I just don't agree with those. In fact, there is no one Indian way, right? We are ourselves such a multicultural society, and so it's interesting to see, even on a golf course, how different people behave differently. There's no standard behavior by nationality that such and such person will only behave like this. It's interesting to observe that. I think I can also learn from that. People handling pressure, people handling difficult situations, people interacting with others. So
a lot of analogy can be drawn up from there. Would you now hire a potential employee if he cheated with you over a game of golf on the green, even if it was just a game?
It's interesting that you should ask that, and I don't know what my answer would have been if it was just a game, but if it's golf and all the standards that golf puts on integrity and so on, no. I should tell you a real experience that happened with me. I was playing a tournament much like the Duke of Edinburgh Cup, and I met a person for the first time who introduced himself to me as a financial consultant. On the second hole, I saw him cheat. He actually moved the ball out of the bunker and played from the fairway. Just nudged the ball out with his foot. Post the game, he's been trying to contact me seeking business. Now that's not the kind of person I'd like to do business with, right? Especially where finance and integrity and everything is so important.
Absolutely. Now, what next for Sunam Sarkar in his career?
I guess more of the same, really. A fact you might not know is I'm not a finance professional either by training or by long experience.
Absolutely, you're more of a marketing professional,
That's right.
isn't
Most
it?
of my career has been in marketing, sales, strategy, and I
believe by de facto you were already heading and spearheading a lot of their financial operations at Apollo as well. So
well,
that's how you took on to becoming the CFO as well.
Yeah, well, as part of the strategy team, we started doing mergers, acquisitions. We needed to finance those, so I started meeting with investors, bankers. One thing led to another, and that's how I am. That's how I am where I am. So where life leads me next, I don't know. It's a little bit like my golf game. I don't know where my next shot will end up, but I've got to do the best from there.
All right, on that's such a wonderful note. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks. Great pleasure playing with you and meeting you.
Likewise. That was Sunam Sarkar, the CFO of Apollo Tyres, and his perspective on the tyre industry and his personal and golfing journey as well. I will see you next week again with another interesting guest. Until then, may the sport be with you.